Welcome to my channel. Let's begin. Hello there. Today we're going to be making armor for Ruby from Rainbow High. This Ruby is from the fantastic fashion of Project Rainbow. She comes with two awesome outfits, but I want to give her something different. Since I don't want to mess with her hair or damage the doll by accident, here we have Violet, the doll I use for making my projects. Tracing and cutting. Let's start by folding a piece of paper and cutting a piece for making a cute breastplate. Make sure the piece wraps around the chest and allow at least 3 centimeters extra on each side. Since achieving symmetrical forms is hard, let's use the folding to our advantage. I like using 2 scissors, a small one for tiny details, and a big one for getting straight cuts. Now, measure your piece on the doll. The size runs into the armpits, so let's trim it a bit more. And trim again. Go little by little. It's easier to trim again than to make the whole piece from scratch. And now it fits. When cutting the excess in the back, remember to leave it long enough on each side. Now, trace the paper pattern on the foam. And cut. Try it on the doll just to make sure it fits. And here's your chest piece. Now goes a tricky piece. Make sure it wraps the waist and the legs. Fold it in half. Make sure it covers the butt. The middle fold is a guide that divides the left and right side of the piece. Pinch it and use your nails to leave a dent on the paper where the butt ends. Now trace it. If you were wondering, yes, we're making a kind of diaper. Measure it. Keep using those nails. Trace the dent or be a savage and just cut it. And measure. It's still too wide, let's trim it a bit more. For doing it like a savage, I cut it a bit more than I should in the back. And the front is still too tight, let's trim it more. It fits! Mark the length on the front. Cut, measure, and trim. Measure the back and cut. Trace and cut. Make sure it fits. Trim and adjust. Perfect. Make sure to save your paper patterns for future reference. Now let's make some greaves. Fold in half and measure. Cut. Use your nails to dent the paper in the back of the leg. Front and back shouldn't go above the knee so she can still bend it. Now, cut following the dents. Measure and trim. It should look like this in the back. Since the two legs are just opposite of each other, I'll just flip the piece to get the pattern of the other leg. Trace, cut, measure, and trim. Don't forget to mark if it's left or right, front or back. I like marking her right side as my left side and her left side as my right side. It just makes sense to me. Done. Now let's make tiny shoes. Measure from the toes to where the bridge of the foot ends. Cut. Measure the bridge of the foot and again use your nails to leave a dent where the ball of the foot and the heel ends. Mark it. Cut. Measure and trim. Now trace the pattern on another piece of paper. And add this line to the new pattern. Cut. This marks where the bridge of the foot starts at the top. Trim. You're gonna cut a U like this. And it should cover the foot like this. Cut the excess and you'll get this shape. It should look like this in the back. You can't tell, but both endings touch. Mark, trace, cut, and measure. Again with the other foot's pattern. Now we'll make a knee cup. Make sure the paper is at least as long as the top of the greaves. Fold in half and cut this shape. Measure it should look like this. Mark, trace, and cut. Now we'll make tiny strips to blend the top of the greaves with the shoes. The strip goes here. It should be able to cover it when bent. Trace and cut. Now the bracers. Remember, she's gotta be able to bend her arm. Cut, measure, and trim. Mark, trace, cut, and measure. Now some pauldrons. Mark, trace, and cut. They fit. And here you have all the pieces. Adjusting the pieces. Now let's bend the foam with some heat. I'd suggest you start with random foams so you get used to the material. The purpose is to give shape and in some cases thin out the foam. That way it will adapt to your doll's body. Heat up the piece and place it on the doll, applying some pressure. Repeat if needed. And so on with all the pieces. This one's a tricky one. Since I don't want it to look like a diaper, I'm using a lighter to thin out the foam. This is exactly why I'm using this doll instead of the one I'm making armor for. Now the rest of the pieces. And of course I forgot a piece, the soles. Same steps. Mark, trace, and cut. Remember to use heat so it adapts to the tiny foot. And done! Build face. Now we gotta figure out how to attach the pieces. For this part sometimes I use a stretchy fabric. And also use these tiny hooks. And snaps. Split pins. And these tiny magnets for modeling. Let's start making tiny armbands for attaching the pauldrons. Mark where the stitch is gonna be on the fabric. Cut in half to make one for each arm. We're gonna use snaps. Measure the armband and mark where the snaps are gonna be. And attach the pointy part of the snap. Now let's stitch the armband, making sure the snap is on the inside. Done! Now turn it inside out. And try it on the doll. Now put the pauldron on top of the snap so it leaves a mark. That's where the top part of the snap is gonna go. Let's attach it with the glue gun. And here you go. Do the same with the other pauldron. Now a snap for the chest piece. Mark where the pointy part of the snap is gonna go. And attach it. Cut the excess. Fit it on the doll and let the pointy side tell you where to sew the other piece of the snap. Cut the excess again, and done! We're going to use the stretchy fabric on the braces and the greaves. Stitch on one side, try it on the doll, and while stretching the fabric, mark where the other stitch is gonna go. Trim it a bit, and start stitching from the inside. You can use something that helps you accommodate the fabric. Be patient and go slowly. Try it on the doll and don't forget to trim inside like me. Here's the other one. And let's do the same with the greaves.
5 minutes later.
Done. And the other one. Now the shoes. Stitch the back of this piece at the heel. But make sure you can take it off. Now stitch the sole. Done. And it comes off. Now the other one. Now this piece. It's a bit big, so let's trim it. Apply a dot of glue and paste the front first. Now the sides. And cut the excess. Now the bottom part. And trim. Now let's do the same with the other one. Done. Now this piece. You could use the snaps, but I decided to try the magnets. Tiny dot of glue and then the magnet. tiny dot of glue, and the other magnet. Grab the piece and apply pressure so the dent tells you where the opposing magnets go. Be mindful of the polarity. And there you go. Trim. Do the same with the other side. And done! Now we gotta cover the shoe stitches. Make this shape. It's like a UV. Trim until you adapt it to the shoe. Cut the excess. Trace and cut. Try them on the shoe and trim if necessary. And glue them on the shoes. Trim if necessary. I like closing the strips on the heel. And done! Now you have all the pieces. Decorating the armour. For decorating, you'll need to plan ahead. I decided to use some resin. Remember to protect your skin. I'm using UV resin and resin ink. And some tiny glitter. It's a very tiny mold, so I'm just adding drops of resin with my tool. I'm making variations of the same mold to fit each armour piece. And checking how it suits it.
2,000 years later.
These are the pieces I made. Now let's use some puffy paint on the borders of each piece. It's gonna help when painting it later. It doesn't matter if you smudge the paint. Just clean it up and try again.
1 eternity later.
Once you finish the borders, you'll have to paint everything in a dark color. I went with black. After it's dry, let's give it some color. I'm gonna use red and add some mica powder so it's a bit shimmery. And some water to dilute the paint. Now paint your pieces. This is the result after 2 coatings. Remember the borders you painted black? There's gonna be a guide to paint them gold. After 3 coatings, now it's time to glue the resin details. I'm using super glue. Final results. Thanks for watching. If you like my content, subscribe and see you the next time. Bye!